Hello everyone, we are live. Welcome to my kitchen and welcome to the launch for the Cook With Me. I am so excited about this program to bring with you. It's so much more than a cooking show. So while everyone's getting a chance to get organized and get logged on, I would love to just go into a little bit more detail about what you can expect tonight and for every week thereafter if you choose to continue with us. So, cooking with me live in my kitchen. This is my kitchen, home kitchen, no tricks, nothing special, a little bit of lighting and my wonderful husband doing all the filming, so thank you. I would really love to encourage you to be interactive with me during all of these Cook With Me's. It really helps me feel like there's actually somebody else on the other end of this and that someone's actually benefiting. So whether you are typing to me in the moment, giving me comments or ideas on where you're at, telling me to slow down, whatever that is, please do be interacting with us as much as you can without losing the pace. And then at the end, I would love to see photos of your creations and how it went down with the family in the comments on the Facebook page after that. So please, we would love to encourage the interaction. If it so happens that I completely stuff up, and I promise you it's going to happen at some point, I would love a few of those little laugh symbols. That would be great because it'll take the pressure off. So yes, as Matt likes to say, warts and all, here we go. This is the live real-time cooking show. Hopefully more than a cooking show in the sense that it is real. And as you can see, I don't have little bowls of pre-prepared ingredients anywhere. And the whole idea of this is that I'm cooking with you at the exact same time. So that means that the only thing that I've set up in advance so far are the topping ingredients for the pizza. And I've run a hot sink of soapy water. And I've cleared up my space. So there's actually a little acronym I want to give you, and it's SIS, as in sister, S-I-S. The first one stands for space. So whenever you begin any cooking effort whatsoever in the kitchen, give yourself some space. Just take the time to clear the area. Space is the S. I stands for ingredients. So let's make sure that you've got all the ingredients on hand that you need. And when they're out, it's a lot easier to function efficiently. The last S stands for sinks. So there'd be 2 sinks that you'd set up. And instead of a sink, you could actually set up a whopping big bowl. These are one of my favorite kitchen tools to use. This is the smallest of my big bowls. But the 2 sinks, one, this is normally what I fill with cold water, and I put a bit of apple cider vinegar in that to wash the veggies. When we're done washing everything food-wise, then that serves as our rinsing bucket before we wash everything in the hot soapy water. So that's one sink. The other sink is going to be the hot soapy water to wash as you go. It's going to save you a lot of water if you do it this way. So remember the acronym SIS, S-I-S, stands for space, ingredients, and sinks. And that is how I set up every single cooking effort that I'm going to do in the kitchen. If you wanted to have one little other bit to that, if you happen to, excuse me, if you happen to be doing any composting, or if you have any chickens in the area that you're feeding, just getting your bucket ready for scraps as well. Okay, so the goal tonight, well, one thing is if you haven't already got your printouts that we've provided for the recipe and then the prep list, you're welcome to download those quickly. There's a link down below on the Facebook group for that and get them printed out and ready for you. Otherwise, I'll try to be doing as much explanation via audio as possible so that you don't always have to be looking up. You can actually be focusing on the task at hand, especially when you're using a sharp knife, please. Watching what you're doing. Yes, so tonight we are cooking the Seedy Sicilian. And I'm just going to make sure that I've got full connection here. And again, like I said, please encouraging everyone to interact. And forgive me if I miss your comment. So the way it's set up now, they keep scrolling. So if there's something, if you have a really important question that I haven't addressed, forgive me please, but don't hesitate to type it again, just so that I can actually catch that coming up. So I see that we've got a couple people online. Thank you for sending me those cool little, I don't know what to call them, emoticons on Facebook, but it's a pretty neat thing that they've got going for us with Facebook Live. So let's get into it. Now, one more thing I need to say is, although this is real-time cooking, it's not going to be full-pace cooking. So the recipe says that this is going to take 15 minutes of prep time to make the bases and 20 minutes in the oven. And that's very true if you were doing this on your own at home, maybe after the first time you've actually made it. So today, and every Cook With Me thereafter, the goal is to give you the skills behind the recipe. And in order for me to do that, I'm treating it a little bit more like my, excuse me, my kitchen school workshops, in that we need to kind of slow it down a little bit and make sure that everyone's caught up and with us on the understandings and the learnings that we're bringing across. There is so much more to being relaxed in the kitchen that I can bring across to you if we can take a little bit more time with every recipe. So treat this as a workshop, treat it as an online course that you're doing. And like I say in the intro video, if you commit to this for 12 to 18 months, you should never need me or anyone else like me again, because you'll be much more confident, efficient, and comfortable in your kitchen, producing delicious food too, by the way. All right, so although it's not it's real time, it's not full pace cooking, we don't know how long this is going to take. I want it to be a little bit flexible for you so that you can ask questions as we go. And if everyone's ready to go, I'd love you to give me a little thumbs up sign and let me know that you're set and ready to kick it off, so we can make my absolute favorite pizza crust, the Seedy Sicilian, which can also double as crackers, believe it or not, quite easily. The one thing I'm also going to do tonight is I'm going to make the large batch. So the batch that makes 12 crusts, I'm going to be doing that one, and that's going to help. You don't have to do this, but if you do have enough of the ingredients on hand, I would encourage you to make that extra batch so that every time, well, for the next 6 times after this, you already have the premix made in the pantry. And this is a very big concept that you'll see me doing a lot in these Cook With Me's, is how can we be more efficient in the kitchen so that we're not a slave to this space. I love it, but we don't need to be in here all day. So let's be more efficient about how we do things. And one of those ways is to make sure we get these premixes happening and into the pantry. Okay, so we've got a few thumbs up, ready to go. Let's get into it. Okay, so if you haven't already got out the dry ingredients for the base, let's do that now. So I will step you through it verbally so that you don't have to look back at your recipe. So let's get out the sunflower seeds and the pepitas to start. So sunflower seeds, pepitas. We're going to need some chia seeds and some sesame seeds. In the event that you don't have enough of any of these seeds, you can substitute with the other ones. The most easy to substitute will probably be the sunflower seeds and the sesame. The pepitas tend to have a bit of a stronger flavor, and the chia, it absorbs a lot of water, so that could dry out the crust a little bit more. So we'd be substituting with extra sunflower or extra sesame if you didn't have enough of everything. All right. Next thing we'll need is the polenta. And you can get out your tapioca flour or your potato starch. I had one question before. If you do not have enough of the potato starch or the tapioca flour, you could probably substitute with buckwheat, but just know that the result will be slightly different. The starches do behave in a different way that helps to create a much more pizza crust traditional feel, if you will. Okay, let's have a look at the recipe just to make sure we've got everything else we need. So we're getting out either the rice flour, or if you've got sorghum, that's another option. So rice or sorghum flour, potato starch or tapioca flour. We've got our polenta. Now we just need flax meal, Italian herbs, and some baking powder, not soda, baking powder. Okay. And if you've got green herb salt, that would be excellent. Otherwise, regular Celtic salt will do the trick just fine. And we're going to get out the Italian herbs here. And you don't have to put Italian herbs in if you don't wish to. One little advantage of not putting the herbs in would be that if you wanted to do a dessert pizza instead, you could make it sweet instead of savory. So entirely up to you. They do add a beautiful flavor to the dish. Now, if you don't happen to have them pre-mixed either, you can just put them in individually. So traditionally, the Italian herbs are basil, oregano, marjoram, thyme, those sorts of things, with a bit of extra garlic and cracked pepper. If you've got all those, great. If not, don't stress. And please, if I end up going too fast for you, again, don't stress. I'm going to be pausing regularly, hopefully regularly enough for you, throughout this whole session so that you can catch up and let me know how you're going. And you can also just type and let me know what's happening. Okay. So like I said before, if you have enough of the ingredients on hand, I'm going to show you how to pretty much just as quickly whip up the batch for 12 crusts as it is for 2. A little bit more effort involved, but not a lot considering how much it would take if you did this in 6 separate sessions. So I'm just going to double check that everyone's on board with us. Everyone got it? Good stuff. Okay, ready to rock. Now, if you're following the simple 2-crust recipe, the key there is to make sure that your sunflower seeds and your pepitas are milled and that the flax meal is milled already. So if you don't have a Thermomix, absolutely fine. All we need is something that can actually mill the seeds. And now that could be a coffee grinder, and you just would have to process it in batches, or it could be a little bullet blender, like a little blitz blender. And if you are using a little bullet blender, it should probably have come with 2 different blades. One blade is going to be really spiky and it'll stick up. The other blade is quite flat, and it's the flat blade that we want for the grinding of the seeds. So if you've got either of those devices to grind up these now, you can. Otherwise, we're going to pop them straight into a strong enough food processor. A regular food processor may not be enough to mill the seeds, just as a heads up there. All right, so now if you're doing the large batch, the nice thing is to go by weight. And weight is a lot more accurate than by volume, but it's more important when it comes to flours. It's less important with the seeds. So I'm going to go by weight, and that's going to speed things up a little bit here. So we're going to need 200 grams of sunflower seeds. And again, we're not making a souffle or something really complicated here. So if you're a little bit over or under, it's not a big deal. So 200 grams of my sunflower seeds. If you're doing the small batch, it's going to be 1/4 cup of each of the seeds. So very easy. We'll tare that again. Then we'll put in 180 of the pepitas. Okay. And then, because I've got my flax already milled, I actually may not have enough. Should do. 200 grams of flax meal. I'm just going to give these a milling first, and then we'll transfer them into a bowl so that I can do the rest. Okay, so this is going to be a bit loud. Bear with me. So that was about 4 seconds on speed 7 if you're using a Thermomix. I tend not to ever use the time measurement because I go by sound and go by feel. And that's again something that you will develop the skill for as we do this over and over. And you'll see, hopefully, that you can be a lot more relaxed in the kitchen when it comes to these things. So this is the meal that we're looking for. So it's not quite a flour, but it's quite fine. And it's going to basically make it so that you can't necessarily detect chunks or pieces when you bite into the pizza crust. It's going to be more like a cracker. So that's what we're looking for. Now, this is another place where the big bowls come in handy. So when you make the big batch, we're going to need something to put it in because it's not all going to fit in here in one step. So grab a big bowl, and I'm going to put all of that into there as we weigh out the rest. Now, I'm not sure if I've got enough flax meal, so let's test that. 200 grams of flax meal. Okay, cool, interesting. So there's only 140 grams of that. So what I've got in the pantry at all times, I keep a large jar of the actual seed of flax meal and then keep a smaller jar of the milled flax. Now, the reason why I do this is because once it's milled, the shelf life goes down considerably, but we actually cannot digest the seeds whole. So we need to be able to eat it in milled form, and it just lasts longer this way. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just transfer this into there, and I'm going to mill up some more flax meal to fill the container while I'm at it. And it's these exact little steps that if you get good at doing this regularly, every time that you're cooking, it's not going to be a chore of a weekend, for example, to have to completely restock your pantry and do all these types of little things, because you can do them on the fly. So it doesn't really matter how much I put in here. I'm just going to mill up a bunch of flax meal, knowing that I can put it into my jar back in the pantry and use it another time. Okay, and again, I'll try not to make this too loud for you. I don't know if you were able to pick up on that, but again, I was going by sound. So when I could hear that the sound was changing in the machine, that means that it's starting to get down to the nice fine grind that we're looking for. Okay? All right, so how's everyone going? I'm gonna check in with you here and see if everyone's able to keep up. You might already be ahead of me if you're doing the single batch. All right. So let's put some of that in there. Good stuff. Okay, now if we need to use the scales on there, I'm just going to grab another bowl to measure that into. Okay, so I needed another 60 grams for my mix. A little bit more, but that's all right. Okay, so that's going to make up my flax meal component. There we go. And while we were at it, we've refilled the flax meal jar. Done. Okay. So where is everybody at? How are we going? Let me check in with you here. Going great. Just putting, oh, sounds good. Michelle, you're going to the extra extent and pre-cooking your sweet potatoes. That's cool. Okay, in the event that you guys can't get on, you won't be able to hear me, but if you can't log in, please just know that there's always going to be the recorded option as well. And I wanted to say that too, if I happen to still be going too fast for you, or there's interruptions in your kitchen, don't stress, just know that you can watch the recording after. And if in future that happens regularly, just schedule yourself in for maybe the Thursday night that you're going to be doing this in the recorded version at home. And as long as you're getting in one session a week, for example, you're going to have all of these learnings accumulating, and next thing you know, you'll be a happy, confident cook. Okay, so where are we up to? So I've got everything that I needed to milled. So the rest is easy. Now we just get to weigh out the rest of the ingredients. So for me, sesame seeds, I'm going to do 200 grams. And like I said, if you haven't got enough, there's always a workaround. In this case, I happen to have some black sesame seeds, so I'm going to put them in there. In my pantry of jars. But like I said, if you didn't have enough sesame seeds full stop, you can do more sunflower meal, you could do more polenta, completely up to you. So sesame seeds don't need to be milled if you don't like, otherwise they can be. And then 270 grams of chia seeds. Now these guys are pretty dense, but my goodness, are they packed full of nutrition. Don't want to miss out on these ones. Plus they also provide quite a nice binding effect into the crust as well. Bit of a crunch. There we go. So 270 grams, those guys. And now our flours. Okay, so this is where it really benefits to go by weight because flour compacts a lot. So this is a rice flour that I've got. I'm going to go by weight. If there's any way that you can go by weight, if you're doing the big one, the big version of the recipe as well, please do. Otherwise, when you're measuring by volume, just make sure that you're scooping it into the measuring cup and leveling it off the top so that it's exactly a level cup. All right, brown rice, 840 grams. So keep in mind, this is going to make a really big batch of pizza crust. There we go. Hence why we need the big bowl to mix it all in. All right, tapioca starch, 420. Now this one tends to go poof on me, so I'm gonna scoop it in. The starches do add quite a nice texture to the dish. They're not exactly bringing a heck of a lot of high quality nutrition, but honestly, compared to a Domino's pizza crust or, you know, pizza capers. I shouldn't be picking on individual ones, but they're all fairly similar in that there's not a lot of nutrition in them either. And as a matter of fact, there's actually, I was reading up on it earlier today, there's actually dough conditioners and bread improvers and other chemicals for emulsifying the fats, and it's just kind of this crazy hodgepodge of chemical soup with not a lot of nutrition in it. So quite frankly, if you can get yourself set up with a premix into the pantry, then you don't have to worry if the kids just want sauce and cheese or ham and cheese on their pizza base, because at least you're getting nutrition in through the crust. Okay, and then polenta, 270 grams of that. Now, if we don't go organic with the polenta, there's a very high likelihood that it will be genetically modified. So this is one ingredient that I would recommend you do go organic with, simply because of the high rates of genetic modification in the corn world. So 270 grams, this is organic polenta. And this does bring a beautiful texture to the pizza crusts. All right, we've got our flax meal. Now we just need some Italian herbs, roughly 35 grams. This may or may not register it, so if yours is not feeling super sensitive to the scales, you could probably stop after about 3 or 4 tablespoons. That'll be enough. Okay, last but not least, salt and baking powder. So this one we will measure by tablespoon instead of weight, because it's much more important to get this one right. So a little trick is you get the back of a dinner knife to do our leveling off. Okay, if we use the proper side of the dinner knife, it's got a bit of a curve to it. So this makes sure that we get a perfect tablespoon of baking powder, not soda. I breathed in a bit too much of that Italian seasoning too. It's got lots of black pepper in it. Okay, so there's our 4 tablespoons of baking powder. I hope you guys are getting smell-o-vision on your end already too, because it smells pretty good on this end. Can't wait till it's actually in the oven. And then the green herb salt. Now look, the reason why I've put green herb salt there is because it adds more flavor and more nutrition. So if this is a topic for another day, but I actually just realized that as of yesterday, my dehydrator, I'd forgotten all of my dehydrated celery leaves in there from yesterday. So all I'm going to do now that they're dehydrated is take them, put them in the blender, and basically pulverize them to a powder. And then that's going to form the basis of my new green salt batch, basically. So you can do that with any green herbs, especially any ones that are going to be going off in the fridge. If you don't have a dehydrator, you can still achieve it in the oven. Bit of a different ordeal, lowest temperature for longer. But then again, that's for another day. So we'll get into that then. So same trick with the salt. Now I know that this might feel like a lot of salt to put 3 or 4 tablespoons in, but think about the fact that this is going over 12 whole crusts. And generally speaking, when you have a pizza, they're quite big crusts, so you probably wouldn't be having a whole one to yourself. So do not worry. We might stick to the 3 on this one. Okay, now this step is not required, but I'm just going to make the Thermomix do the mixing for me on this step, and it might just get rid of any possible chunks that I had in the baking powder. Okay, then we mix everything up, and if you've got a jar ready or on hand for your extra mixes, if not, just a series of different containers or buckets or whatever you've got, even bags, to hold the extra dough in. Okay, so let's give that a big mix. It's quite a strong Italian mix too. And we'll just make sure that we get it looking cohesive. So you keep stirring basically until you see no changes happening in color or texture. Gosh, think of the hours you're going to save on the future Friday nights when you have that temptation to put the order through for takeaway pizza, and you know that within about 4 minutes you could have pizza bases in the oven pre-cooking while you cut up all your stuff. And honestly, it is faster than waiting for the delivery guy to drop off an ordered pizza. So, not to mention healthier, happier, all of the above. Okay, so I'm not seeing any changes now in the stirring. I'm going to call that mixed. And with a simple big funnel, basically, this job makes it a bit easier. Now, this jar is not going to be big enough for this whole amount left over tonight, so I'm going to have to use another one as well. But for all intents and purposes, this is all I do normally. And realistically, the difference between me doing that big double, or I guess 6 times batch, versus making a single one did not take me 6 times the amount of effort, but it would have done that if I'd have done them individually. So I hope that concept makes sense, because this is a concept that we can use very regularly in a lot of what you're doing in the kitchen. Okay, so if everyone wants to type to me and let me know that you've caught up and that you're ready with your dry mix, or wherever you're at. The next step for us is going to be to get the oven preheated. So if you haven't already done that, let's turn that on. You can get it on to 200 degrees Celsius, which, I believe that's, I should have looked it up, 425 Fahrenheit. I'm a bit out of touch now. I've been in Australia for too long. So we'll get that heating up and let's check in with you. So now, yes, let's get this ready. We'll need to get our baking trays out. So we'll probably need, I'll show you roughly the size that this is going to fill for the 2 crusts. So these sizes is roughly what we need for these 2 crusts, or the equivalent thereof. If you really wanted a super thin crust, you could probably get away with one other little tiny one as well. I might pull that out just in case. This crust really does benefit from being super thin, so keep that in mind. And then, baking paper. Now, this is also another bit of a topic for another day, but we can talk about baking paper. Thanks, guys. Looking good. Hope everyone's caught up and ready to get this thing in the oven. Okay, now baking paper, just quickly. I buy my baking paper in bulk, in slabs. It comes flat. So I just took a couple pieces and rolled them up. And then I keep this on hand, basically in the drawer here. Now, there are ways you could make that even simpler, but the reason why I go to that little bit of extra effort is because conventional baking paper, especially if it's wax paper, think about it, is covered in waxes. And they are very chemical-based waxes. They're not your nice, pretty beeswax. So I do not want those leaching into my food personally. I don't know about you. And also, the other baking papers that feel a lot more papery rather than waxy are actually coated in flame retardants. So don't want that either. All right, so a little trick here, if you do have pieces to cut, I just like to get a knife out. A bit easier than scissors, I find. Okay, so one's ready there. One's ready there. And then because of the nature of this dough, it's going to behave very differently to what you may be expecting for a pizza crust. So because it's got lots of seeds in it, once that we add the liquid, it's going to start thickening up really quickly. So if this step is ready to go and we act fairly quickly with the spreading of the dough, it's going to be a lot easier for us. It's still possible otherwise. It just makes our job a lot more simple if we act quickly. Okay, so we've got our papers ready. Now we just need to measure out our 3 1/3 cups. Now, if you've only done the single batch, then you should be good because you'll use all of what you've measured out. Okay. Okay. So now, just quickly, so Karen, what is green herb salt? Yes, good question. We did touch on that briefly, but basically you don't need to put green herb salt in. You can just use regular Celtic salt for now. Use the lower amount. And if you do get a chance, eventually we will touch on the green herb salt on another Cook With Me session. But basically it's just a bunch of your own dried green herbs that we pulverize into a powder, mix it with salt, and it helps you get a little bit more nutrition in every single time you go to use the salt shaker. That's green herb salt. But again, you do not need to have it for this recipe. Regular salt's fine. So 1 cup, 2 cups. We want 3 1/3 if you're following along and you did the big batch with me. So 3 1/3. There we go. Okay. And then if you haven't already got out the olive oil or refilled your olive oil bottle, let's bring out the big guns. So olive oil, and we're going to need water. Now, double checking the recipe, we're going to need 1 1/4 cup of water. So let's get that all organized. If you have access to the filtered water, let's use that one. And one little thing that you can do just to make it a little bit easier on yourself as well is make sure that you've even got the spoon ready that you're going to flatten out the dough with. Because I like to act fairly quickly once we get it going. Okay. Spoon. So any sort of big dinner spoon should be fine. You could even maybe use the spatula to spread it out with. But this is kind of magic when the seeds start absorbing everything. So, you ready to go? Hopefully everyone's on track with us. Okay, liquids in, here we go. 1 cup of water, 1/4 cup of water, 3 tablespoons of olive oil, 1, 2, 3. There we go. And then we give that a good stir. Getting all the last little bits in there. And now see how nice and liquidy it is? That's exactly what we want. And from there we're going to work fairly quickly. I'm going to just assume we're going to get an extra one out of this. And we're going to spread it out onto the trays. Now, if you don't happen to guess right with how much volume on each tray, that's okay, we can move it around. But this is how to make it more simple. Now, a while ago, we brought dinner to a friend's house, and we weren't exactly sure what to make, but because they had, well, 4 kids, but 3 that were able to help us, we decided to make the Seedy Sicilian pizza crust so that they could all help. And we had them set up on the other side of their kitchen bench, and I had them all armed and ready with their own spoon and their own baking tray, and basically just had them do the spreading, and they nailed it. The youngest one, I think, is only 2 1/2, I think, and she was on it too. So absolutely something that kids can take part in, and a way that you guys can make pizza nights a family thing for everyone. So see how easy that is? There's no rolling, there's no waiting for yeast to rise. There's no mucking around, and we do want them fairly thin, so I think we did a good estimate to have this extra pan out. Hopefully you have enough pan space. If you don't have exact pans, that's perfectly fine. You can just use casserole dishes or whichever you've got on hand. And we want it basically as thin as you can get it without seeing a hole through the paper, because those seeds are going to help the hold, and it will still hold firm like a pizza crust when you take a bite in your hand or a piece in your hand. And you can see how much thicker it's already gotten just since I first poured it out. So again, totally doable. You don't have to rush or stress. Just means you'll spend a little bit more time spreading it thin. Easy. I love this pizza crust. It's so quick. No mess. And we can also take it to crackers. So if you don't feel like making this much pizza, you could either freeze the base for easier pizza next time, so all you have to do is pull it out of the freezer and start covering it in toppings, or you could turn it into crackers so that you have snacks for lunches and weekends and whenever you feel the urge. Okay, I'm going to call that good. If it's pretty even, then you'll be guaranteed to have a better cooking experience. Otherwise, some spots might just be a bit softer than others, so not a big deal. There we go. Okay, that's our crusts. Super simple, super easy. So we're going to get them into the oven. If you like a fairly pliable crust, like a softer crust, we probably are only going to pre-cook them for about 15 minutes tops. And then when you put the toppings on and continue baking your pizza, it might go in for another 20 minutes or so, and that'll make sure that the crust stays pliable. And if you like it crispy, you probably would start off with 20, maybe 25 minutes initially in the oven, but 20 should be good enough. So I'm going to aim for 20, knowing that we like a bit of a crispier crust. We'll get that into the oven. Don't forget to set yourself a timer, because there's nothing worse than having burnt pizza crust when you've got the toppings already and raring to go. No, we're gonna do 15. Yeah, cool. Okay, so that's the base. Hopefully everyone's caught up. Let me hear from you. I want to hear how that process went for you. If you're still spreading pizza crust bases or what's going on, please let me know. And as you're doing that, I'm just going to do a quick little bit of tidying up as we go, because this is a really good habit to kind of develop, is to not end up with like looking like the bomb exploded when we're done cooking. So I'll just put a couple of these things away. I love the whole smell-o-vision thing. It's just, I'm so happy you can smell what we're making and you actually get to taste it too. All right. Okay, how are we going, everyone? As runny as mine. Good, that's a good sign, Michelle. Spread it thin and we'll get it in the oven. Good, yay, Denise, smells good. Thank you for joining us, everyone. Good. Okay, cool. So hopefully everyone's ready to get into the toppings. Now this is where it gets interesting, because everyone has a different version of pizza toppings. And I would encourage you to be creative and to use what's in the fridge. So just because a recipe says it has to have X, Y, and Z does not mean that that has to be your pizza topping. You can make it whatever you like. And interestingly enough, I remember Michelle saying that you'd started pre-cooking the sweet potato. Now that's excellent, but if we slice things thin enough, you might not even need to do that. So that's where I like to use a mandolin or a food processor with the slicing blades. So if you have either of those available to you, I'd get them out now, because it's going to simplify your life, save you some of the extra steps of pre-cooking things. If we make them thin enough, they should cook in time in the pizza. So I've got pumpkin, I've got sweet potato, I've got pineapple, mushrooms, zucchini, tomato. I've even actually got some, all I did basically was go through the fridge and see what I had to use up and what I could possibly put on pizza. I've got some pre-roasted onions that I've cut up as well, so I'm going to put those on the pizza. Okay. If you've got olives, sun-dried tomatoes, we've got some fresh spinach here. So let's get that happening. And I am going to use a mandolin. However, my mandolin hat has recently lost a couple of its prongs on me, so I'm only going to go down as far as I can by holding it by hand, so bear with me. Now, if you are using a mandolin, there's probably a thick and a thin setting on the mandolin, so we're obviously going to choose the thin one for pizzas. Okay, and before we get into any of that, we'll need to wash our veggies up. So let's get our sink or our bowl of cold water with a bit of vinegar in it. Now you can get away with using a less expensive vinegar and use a white vinegar. You could use apple cider vinegar if you had that as well. Okay, and then like I said before, that is then going to double as our rinsing sink when we come back to do the washing up after. Oh, Kim, are you going to put prawns on your pizza? Definitely. Yum. Now, that one's going to take a little bit longer if you're hand peeling those prawns, so you have to go quick. Employ the troops. So, a sink or a bowl of vinegar water is going to help us wash the veggies. Now, whether you're buying conventional veggies or organic, I still definitely wash them in vinegar water. If you're buying the conventional ones, generally the vinegar is going to help take off any of the external chemicals or herbicide residues that are on it, as well as any dirt or parasites, anything like that. Not parasites, sorry. Yeah, parasites? Bugs. Can't remember what I'm thinking of. Well, some of the nasties, okay? And now if you are buying organic veggies, the same applies and potentially more, because if they're not covered in herbicides and pesticides, that means that the bugs are actually going to enjoy feasting on them. So even if you're buying organic, definitely still washing our veggies. Okay, and this beautiful full leaf English spinach. Very excited to put that on the pizza. Okay, and another little aside here. Although on the pizza, I'm only going to put the leafy bits, please do not throw this bit away. This is full of nutrition and so much benefit in this. So what I would do here is just take off the very, very tips, the very ends. We'll put them in the compost for the chickens. Okay, so that we can get in there and clean them properly. And then these bits, a couple of things you can do with them. These could also be dehydrated and go into your green herb salt. Or we can put these into stock, but because they're really green, I would suggest that you don't put them in till the last sort of 4 to 6 hours, otherwise it can tend to go a bit bitter. And the other thing you could do is just chop them up and have them in a different meal. So they could be steamed up to go with the dinner one night, just having the stalks of the the spinach. Otherwise, I like to just chop them up really fine and have them in an omelette in the morning. So please do not throw this bit away. You've paid for it, you've paid for the nutrition in it, so you might as well get the benefit of the full thing. And we don't need to throw anything away, really. There's always a use for them. Okay, so those we're going to save for later, not for the pizza. Work with them later. And then we'll give these a good wash, get that happening. And I would recommend, if you are using something really leafy like this, or anything that's going to hold a bit of moisture, that we're going to dry them properly, because we don't want a wet, soggy pizza. So I'm going to grab the salad spinner just to dry those up. Yay, pizza stones. Go, Anna. Oh, did you spread it directly onto the pizza stone? Okay, let me know how that goes. I hope it doesn't stick too much. I should have said too, if you are going to use a pizza stone, you can put down a little skiff of polenta first. I know it's going to get spread around as you do it, but hopefully it would help from the sticking. But if the pizza stone was hot enough, it shouldn't be an issue. So I'd love to hear how you go, Anna. Let's get those. And look at these beautiful little baby mushrooms I found at the markets on the weekend. So cute. They can go onto the pizza just halved. We'll get them washing. So coming back to what you'd put on your pizza, the sky's the limit, and it comes back to your tastes. So like I said, don't let someone tell you that a certain vegetable or something can't go on a pizza. I've even had a jacket potato pizza that had cashew sour cream as the base. It had finely sliced potato. It had onion. It had, I think it was tempeh bacon, but you could put normal bacon on top as well. And what else did we put on there? A bit of shredded zucchini, finely sliced zucchini, and some shallots. And it was delicious. It was divine. So don't feel like just because someone says that doesn't go on pizza, doesn't mean you can't have fun and play a little bit. It's completely up to your taste buds. Coming back to what I said about making sure the pieces are thin enough, that's going to, I guess, determine what you can put on a pizza. So to save you the step of having to pre-cook anything, let's cut it really thinly. Now, if you don't have a mandolin, you could just be using a very sharp knife. But the use of a mandolin, as you'll see, will save you a lot of time and stress in the future. And even if it's not just for making pizzas, even just making sandwiches or wraps or preparing stuff for lasagnas, it just saves you so much time. Now, forgive my lack of safety demonstration here. Because I don't have a functioning hat, a safety hat, I'm actually going to stop a bit early and do the rest of this by hand. Safety first, children. Okay, same goes with the zucchini. Let's make a new pile, nice thin slices of zucchini. Even if the kids don't like zucchini normally, maybe you can get away with putting it down as the first layer on the pizza. Especially if it's thin enough, and especially if it cooks long enough, you'll have a better chance of getting away with sneaking it in. And I know some of you are sitting there going, no, not my kids. They'll pick it up, they'll see the green, they'll pull it out. That's fine. At least they had a taste of it, and at least you keep putting it in front of them so that they eventually, one day, will start to like it. Remember, it takes 20 tastes to like a new food. So if you get 19 no's, then you can start celebrating, because the next one, you should be okay. Okay, now, if I had the hat for this, which looks like this, but I'm just missing prongs, we could do the tomatoes on here as well, but I'm going to do them by hand with a knife. And the pumpkin we can do on here. So, the benefit of having a nice big chopping board is we don't have to muck around worrying about losing stuff over the edge. So let's do some nice thin slices of tomato. The sharper your knife, the less damage the tomato's going to experience, which means it's going to retain more of that juiciness and the flavor. So if you feel like your knife is kind of squashing the tomato, that's a sign that it's not quite sharp enough, and we should touch it up a little bit. It'll also make your life a heck of a lot easier in using it. So there's our thinly sliced tomato. We'll get the onion happening in the same way, but again, with the hat, I could have done the onion beautiful thin slices, so that's all right. We're all in the same boat together here. This is a white onion. You could use red onion, yellow onion, doesn't matter. I like to change it up a little bit. I figure that nature's designed us these different foods for reasons, so the more variety that I get into my diet, the better likelihood there is that my body will get something that it might be lacking. So I change it up. And a little piece of trivia. Since 1905, we've lost 95% of all of the fruits and veggies and edible foods known to man. So not to put it down on the evening, because it's quite depressing, but literally those things are now extinct. So the more we can eat the other heirloom varieties and the other kinds of fruits and veggies, the more likely we are to still have them in generations to come. So So another reason to go to the farmer's market, because a lot of foods that you can't find in a supermarket, you can find at the markets because the farmers still grow them, but they're not necessarily commercially viable for supermarkets to stock them, which is why they tend to go extinct, is because nobody's still growing them. So the more we can support the farmers, the more likelihood we have of our children and our grandchildren getting to have amazing selection of fruits and veggies with what we've got left anyways. Okay, so there's some raw onion. In contrast to the roasted onion, I would probably put a little bit less of the raw onion on a pizza. I know it's going to get cooked in the oven, but because this has been pre-roasted, we're going to get a lot more flavor from it without such an onion punch, if that makes sense. All right, spinach. We could just go wild and put these on flat as the bottom layer. I think that sounds like more fun than chopping them up personally, so I'm going to do that. And let's get some pumpkin happening. Now, we won't talk about skinning cats, but there's many ways to cut a pumpkin. And I think everyone's going to have their own personal preference. If I were just popping this into the oven to do roasted pumpkin, I would definitely leave the skin on. But given that we're making pizza, I'm going to be okay with giving the skin to the chickens, or the skin can actually go in your broth. So if you've gone one step further in your kitchen preparation, and you've actually prepared yourself a container for putting all of your veggie scraps that can make a stock or a broth out of, then that can go in there, because that makes a delicious, delicious ingredient into your stock or broth, as well as the seeds. So all of that goes straight in to a stock or broth. All right, how is everyone going? Just touching base with you. Hi, Tom and Dea, thanks for listening in. So happy you're helping Mum cook, that's awesome. Okay, timer says pizza crusts are done, ready to go. Let's take them out. But make sure you leave the oven on. So see how we get a little bit of flexibility still here? So we're definitely not at the cracker stage. We've still got a little bit of pliability. Okay, that's exactly what we want as a pre-cook. So it's firmed up enough that I could probably lift this up with one hand. Yes, I could, so that's good. It's holding, but now we're going to put the toppings on and do the final bake after that. So that's a really good pre-cook stage. But if you do like a really crispy pizza, I would probably keep that in for another 5 to 7 minutes, just to make sure it's going to be really crispy by the time your toppings are done. All right, so we'll leave the oven on while we finish cutting up the rest of the ingredients, and then we're going to talk sauces, because that's another one of my favorite topics. All right, so I'm going to make use of the mandolin for a little bit of thin pumpkin slices. If anyone's already caught up and able to chat and talk to us, can you let me know what you're going to put on your pizza? Because I'm always curious to hear the different flavor combinations that everyone picks. I tend to just go with whatever's in the fridge, but it's nice when people put a bit of thought into making a different style pizza to what you normally make. All right, let's call that good. Thinly sliced pumpkin. And last but not least, our beautiful little button mushrooms. Hey, Rachel's dad, thanks for watching. Cool, and I'm glad to hear the kids are going to be having some zucchini. It's my favorite too, I love it. So yum. Okay. Got my stovetop beeping at me. Beautiful baby mushrooms. Definitely no need to peel. I've been soaking them in the vinegar water now for a couple of minutes, so no need to peel. We just want to make sure there's no little bits of dirt left on them. So they're all good to go. All right. Now, I've also got a little bit of olives, but before I get into chopping those, just wanted to talk about sauce, because the sauce basically, I think, makes the pizza. Now, or it can make the pizza if you choose it to. So instead of just leaning for the tomato sauce, the regular jar of tomato sauce, well, first of all, I should say, please choose the regular jar of tomato sauce, tomato paste, over a proper pizza sauce label, because chances are they're going to add some other stuff in there that you really don't need, and you can add yourself in a lot more of a healthy way. So if you're just using the plain old tomato paste, try and go organic wherever possible. Tomatoes are highly concentrated when they get into the jar by the time they become paste. So we definitely want to try and go organic with those ones. And then we can spruce it up a little bit. So because I've got the olives in, they're basically brined in some spices and some herbs and garlic, I'm going to use some of those herbs and garlic from the olive jar into the mix with the plain tomato paste. So you can make use of things like that. You may even have some sun-dried tomatoes that you're going to use, and those might have some seasonings down the bottom of the jar. So it's another way to make use of that and save yourself a bit of effort of marinating everything. All right. So that bowl, now that we're done washing all of our veggies in, is going to be used for washing up at the end. And that's another topic we can touch on another time. Now, the age-old question, and I want to hear your thoughts. Does pineapple belong on a pizza? Given that I'm putting it on, obviously you know my thoughts, but I've heard some very, very strong opinions on whether pineapple belongs on a pizza. So I'd love to hear your thoughts, because it does matter to me. And I'd also love to figure out where it came from that pineapple was blasphemous to put on a pizza. I do not know where that came from, but I love it. So let's get that pineapple happening. If I were back in Canada, can't believe I'm admitting this, but basically because we don't have as great of access to a lot of these fresh foods, and even if we did have access to it, we might have paid $8 for this fresh pineapple. Most people use tinned pineapple, and that's fine, that's cool, I'm okay with that. But if you are in Australia, there's no reason to use tinned pineapple. People, you've got full access to the most amazing, healthy, delicious, juicy, oh, so good. So yes, please use fresh pineapple. And save the tops. You can actually grow the tops. I know it takes 2 years, but if you start now, you'll have pineapples as well. All right, so let's give ourselves a shape that we can work with, taking the core out. Again, if you had the hat on the mandolin, this would be another way to simplify it. I'm going to go just a little bit on edge here. Please do not do this at home without the hat. Just wanted to restate that. Okay, the rest we can do by hand. All right, so where's everyone at with your ingredients? Is everyone caught up? Do you have all your toppings ready to go? I tend to like to overdo it when it comes to preparing toppings, because then if you have leftovers, it saves you for meals the next day as well. So I would use the extra leftovers, like I said, in an omelette tomorrow morning, in a quiche, in a frittata, in a soup, depending on what ingredients it is. The pineapple you could use in breakfast, have that over porridge. There's always a use. Think of it as investing in extra food prep time that you don't have to do tomorrow. Okay, what is everyone's thoughts on the pineapple? No pineapple for Denise, but the kids will get that. That's good. Anyone else have pineapple opinions? Michelle's doing chorizo, mushroom, olives, and goat's cheese. Yum. Yum, yum, yum. Ham, pineapple, chili, mozzarella. Yes, Kim, that sounds delicious too. And it's interesting because most people tend to do much simpler pizzas than I do. I tend to go overboard on the toppings. For me, it's all about the toppings, as in piled on. As a matter of fact, Denise, you might remember Damien giving me heck for that time that we had pizza in the pizza oven, and our pizzas didn't cook before the base burnt because we had too many toppings on it. So anyways, lesson learned. I'll put less toppings on from now on. Okay, we're nearly there. Now, I also had a question from someone before about whether or not I eat dairy. So I'll just say that I love dairy. I love cheese, but it doesn't love me. So I sometimes put myself through that, but I've actually come to love pizzas without cheese on it now. So there's other things we can add on. I wasn't going to go into a heap of detail on the dairy-free options tonight, but know that that's coming in future Cook With Me sessions. So if you're not going to put cheese on tonight, other options, as you've heard of already, is goat's cheese. You can do feta. Those are still classified as dairy. If you want a non-dairy option, sometimes I do dollops of cashew cheese made out of cashews. And the other thing we can do is create a macadamia parmesan cheese style thing. So basically that's blitzing up into a seed grinder of some kinds, macadamias, sesame seeds, salt, and nutritional yeast. And that can be your dairy-free Parmesan cheese. It tastes amazing. Okay, now I didn't fully finish my sauce discussion. Other things that you can use for sauces on a pizza would include pesto. You could even get away with hummus. I was thinking about what kind of pizza we could build on a hummus base, and I have a lot of ideas. I'm sure you can come up with some too. You could also use chutney or homemade tomato sauce, homemade barbecue sauce. Those types of things work very well as a pizza base, and they help to really change up how it presents with the same toppings on it. Okay, so for the sake of a couple of people that are going to be eating this pizza with us, I'm going to do a little bit of cheese, and I'm going to keep some cheese free as well. This is one of my favorite graters. Totally an unintentional IKEA plug here, but they do make some things amazing by design. This is one of them. It's got a grater in both directions, so you're halving your grating time. That's worth a plug. And if ever something like that feels like a chore in the kitchen, just change your mindset and think of it as an opportunity to get a workout. Honestly, it has made me go from thinking that, well, I love it, so it's not really a chore ever, but if ever my arm gets tired, I just turn it into, no, let's use the proper muscles and get a workout out of it so I can spend less time thinking about working out otherwise. All right, bit of cheese. Now, if I hadn't have been gabbing so much, I probably would have had all of that done by the time the pizzas came out of the oven. And I'm not sure where you guys are at, but maybe you'd have the same happening. So a couple more olives, and then I promise I'm done with toppings, but this is pretty exciting. Pizza night is probably my favorite night of the week. And yes, it does happen nearly weekly, especially when I've got that premix in the pantry already ready to go. So a little bit of spicy olives to go on top of the pizza. These are actually from one of my favorite stalls. Well, a lovely gentleman at the Fisherman Road markets locally here. Him and his wife make up these olive mixtures, so I love going to them and getting them. All right, let's get these things into the oven. Okay, so the other sauce that I'm going to be using today is a chutney, leftover chutney that we've made. So that's going to change the flavor beautifully on some of the pizzas. And then I'll still use some regular tomato paste and add in some of these spices from the olives as well. Okay, so now the decorating begins. And from this point onwards, it's pretty much entirely up to you how you want to build your creation. This is where I also like to employ the troops, get the kids on hand, helping you out. Anyone else that's around, if they want to have pizza, then they can come help. So let's put a little bit of pizza sauce down for this one. Like I promised, we're going to use some of these delicious spicy herbs and oil, and a nice bonus olive in there. Yum. Oh, the smell-o-vision. Are you guys getting this? Loving it. This is also part of the digestion process, and I swear you're going to hear me talk about this a lot, but it's so important when it comes to digestion to be part of the food making experience. This whole process is actually generating the digestive enzymes in my belly right now that are going to help me digest this even better than if I'd have just sat down to the meal that somebody else prepared for me. So the making of the food and the, I guess you could say, the imbuing of love into your food is a very important part, not just mentally and emotionally, but actually physically and physiologically as far as the digestion goes. Okay, so there's our tomato-based version. I had this hot sauce there that I was going to put a little bit on too, so I'm going to put that on half. A little bit of homemade hot sauce. Whew, that's going to be spicy. I think I need some of your prawns, Kim, because that would be yummy on this spicy side. All right, now we get to decorate. Is there any magic order? No, but everyone's going to have their thoughts about this. I've also seen some pretty heated discussions about what order to put ingredients on pizza in. My theory, and it could be completely incorrect, is that the stuff on top is going to cook more than the stuff on the bottom. So if something's already pre-cooked, that can go on the bottom. Or if something doesn't really need a lot of cooking, that can go on the bottom. So we get our nice assembly line of pizzas going. If you happen to be so organized as to make extra bases in the one go, then in this case, you could actually freeze the pizza already pre-made up like this. And so long as you eat it within about 2 to 3 weeks, the fact that the veggies aren't pre-blanched shouldn't be a factor. So if it goes much beyond the 2 to 3 weeks, you might start to notice that the texture of the veggies, once you do cook it, is not as delicious. Because the enzymes actually start breaking down raw veggies while they're still in the freezer, which is why all of your frozen veggies come to you pre-blanched. So that's all right. You can still put it in the freezer like this. You'll get a good couple weeks out of it, and then all you have to do is pop it into the oven, and everyone's happy. For those nights when you know you're not going to be home till late, and hangry people will be abound. Okay, so I put the pumpkin on top because I want it to do a little bit more cooking than the rest. And I'm going to exercise some personal resistance here and not put absolutely everything on one single pizza. Damien will be so proud. And we'll do some mushrooms and some olives. Yum. Oh, and this one's not getting spinach, clearly. The next one will have to. Okay, so that's that one. That one will get a little bit of cheese. And even if you are having cheese, you don't have to put as much on as Pizza Capers do and all the other places, Domino's. It can just be for a little bit of joy. It doesn't have to be the entire base of the pizza. And then you'll have a bit less guilt when you go to eat that 3rd or 4th or 5th or 6th slice. All right, that one I'm going to call good. Let's pop that one in the oven for another 20-25 minutes. While we get the other ones created. And this is where I really would love to encourage you to have fun. The kitchen should not be a chore. Feeding yourself should not be a chore. It should be something ideally that you enjoy doing and appreciate, I guess, for the sake of nourishing your body. So this is a chutney that I've made another day. This is got coconut in it. It's got some dried fruits in it. It's got persimmons. It is a delicious pizza base, a bit of a thicker one, but that's going to bring quite a bit of flavor, different flavor than tomato, to our pizza as well here. Okay. Now let's make sure this one gets this nice bits of spinach. Keep in mind these are going to wilt down a lot, so I'm going to pile them up. and create to your heart's content. How about some zucchini? And I wonder what the most crazy pizza ingredient is that someone's putting on. You guys want to tell me if you feel like you've got a crazy pizza ingredient? Shredded chicken, mushroom, sweet potato, capsicum, stuffed olives, onion, and baby spinach. Ooh, yum. Love your work. Okay, let's do some of the raw onion on this one. Definitely with that nice chutney base. I'm going to put the pineapple on for a bit of extra sweetness. Doesn't have to be fancy. A couple of mushrooms. I think that if I had goat's cheese on hand, I probably would have put some goat's cheese on this one. But given that I don't, let's do a little bit more of this cheese on there. Now, one trick that I can give you, if you are going to have cheese, but you know that your body doesn't necessarily appreciate you very much when you do eat it, is try to buy the most aged cheese that you can find, because that's going to mean you get all the flavor that you're after without needing to put a ton of it on. So it's definitely a little trick, is to really buy the well-aged cheeses beyond 12 months. If you can go 24 or more, that's going to give you the stronger flavor that we're after. Okay, I'm going to keep that one as simple as that. Pop that guy in the oven. And last but not least, it's going to be a bit of a hodgepodge. And as you can see, I'm going to have plenty of ingredients left over. So that's completely okay. I actually do that on purpose so that, like I said, tomorrow I've got a really quick and easy frittata sitting right there, or a stir fry, or whatever I feel like. And we'll pile everything else onto this one. Okay, so I definitely would love to hear back from you once you get to dig into these pizzas, what your thoughts are on the base in particular. Is it too crunchy for you? Is it the right texture? You do have full control over that texture, by the way. So if it happens to be too crunchy for your liking, just know that you pre-cook it for a little bit less time next time, and monitor when you take it out of the oven. And if you want it more crispy, we just put it in for longer at a lower temperature to prevent it from burning. So this pizza is going to have a little bit of anything and everything left over. Why not some sweet potato? That'll be nice on top. They might kind of go a little bit crispy on top. And then when you take out the pizza too, if you feel like your pizza is lacking a little bit of oomph or specialness, there's things you can put on the pizza afterwards, such as some avocado, or if you're making a taco pizza, with things like taco beef and a bit of black beans, or zucchini and other taco stuff, you could put on some shredded iceberg lettuce on top, and even a bit of sour cream and salsa on top when you serve it. That was one of my favorite pizzas growing up. Taco pizza. Okay, so that's the last little bit of cheese there. On to the rest of that one. I'm going to sprinkle a little bit of nutritional yeast. Give it a little bit of a cheesy-like flavor and some extra vitamin Bs. Last little bit of nutritional yeast. Okay. Make sure our timer is set. And there we have it, the Seedy Sicilian pizza, ready to go in, well, 20 minutes from now. I can't wait for you to get to experience full smell-o-vision turned taste-o-vision. And I would love to seriously have photos of this when it comes out of the oven. I want to see your creations. I want to hear how you went. If you had any issues, troubles, stuck points, let me know. That way I can help make the next one even better. And yes, would love your feedback. Love to hear how you went and see your pizzas. Otherwise, enjoy your pizza. Can't wait. Thank you very much, and good night.